Hello and welcome to this short video on new trade theory, first mover advantage, and in particular learning curve effects. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the idea of first mover advantage in marketing and strategy. In marketing, it's often the idea that if you're there first, you have name familiarity, so you have a promotional advantage over competition. Plus there's also the strategic advantage of being able to achieve economies of scale sooner and thus being able to produce cheaper. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Let's have a look at this graph here. On the x-axis you will see cumulative production. This is the total amount of a product that has been produced since the company started producing that product. And these are the production costs. As we can see, the more that you produce of a product over time, the lower the costs will be. This company A has produced this amount of a product, and their production costs over time have reduced by this amount. Why would that be? Well, there could be many reasons, but typically it's because you get better at things the more that you do it. Think about it yourself. If you're doing maths problems, the more you do them, the better you get. If you're playing a musical instrument, like guitar for example, the more years that you've played the guitar, the better you are at guitar. Well, maybe not me, but for most people anyway. So there's practice, there's the reduction of waste, learning how to do new processes and things like that. All this can reduce costs over time. So let's imagine a company or an economy similar to A here, and they start off production, and they start off, their costs are going to be here as opposed to A's here. Therefore, they're not going to be competitive on production costs, meaning that unless they have a lot of cash available, they're not going to be in a situation to get enough production to compete with A, at least on costs anyway. So we can see that the learning curve has a very powerful effect there. Now it goes a bit beyond that. Imagine this scenario. We'll bring in this red here. On this red line you see company B, or we could say economy B, that for various reasons has natural production cost advantages over A. Maybe the labour is cheaper, they've got better technology, cheaper access to capital. Now let's have a look at B's problem. B's problem is, although they have the potential of producing things cheaper than A by this amount, when they start off production, their costs are here. A has already been producing for this amount of time and their costs are here, meaning there is a difference in production costs of this amount. B would have to be here before their production costs equal what A's production costs are now. This is a very important principle in new trade theory, because it tells us that being first has very powerful effects and can lead to quite significant advantages. Unfortunately, it also gives credibility to the idea of the infant industry argument. This states that governments can, and perhaps even should, protect and encourage companies that have the potential to be cheaper and better at producing than the incumbents. Now they can protect them with things like trade tariffs, and they can help them with things like subsidies. However, the problem with the infant industry argument is that there is very little evidence that governments can consistently and reliably identify firms and economies that ultimately will succeed, and they will be taking taxpayers' money and giving it to firms that are not going to be competitive. So in general, most economists reject this idea. The key thing is then to be first and to gain those advantages. What can governments do to help? Probably the best things are good education, good infrastructure, and generally making life easier for people to start businesses. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you have, please leave comments below. If you haven't, also please leave comments below. I'd like to know how I can improve and to make better videos in the future. Okay, thank you very much.